This is Sally Becker. She's lived in Brighton almost all of her life, and now she's bringing up her 11-year-old daughter Billy in the seaside town she loves. But it hasn't always been this way. In 1993, she left her home here and travelled into a war in the heart of Europe.
My life changed when I reached the age of 33 and the war was raging in Bosnia, and I decided to go out there and try and help.
Bosnia was fighting for its independence after Yugoslavia had disintegrated into chaos. Sally drove to the Bosnian city of Mostar with a convoy of aid to help those most in need. But while she was there, she was taken to a makeshift hospital, and what she saw horrified her.
I just saw this ward filled with children, with arms missing, legs missing. It was just something out of Dante's hell.
Sally knew she had to act, so she arranged to get the children out of the city and give them the medical help that would save their lives. Her mercy missions earned her the name the Angel of Mostar. Sally hasn't been back to Bosnia since the war ended, but has decided it's now the right time to return. She wants to meet some of the children she helped save, and she will discover how she truly feels about the ones she couldn't. This is Mostar today. The city's famous old bridge has been rebuilt.
I've only seen this view in photographs, because of course I could never come here. When the war was on, it was impossible. I'd have been killed instantly standing here.
But memories of the war are never far away.
When I was here, this river was polluted with bodies. And this side, the east side, was besieged. And when I came in, it had been under siege for 3 months. 55,000 people were virtually starving. They'd had no aid all that time. People were being wounded, killed. It was just appalling.
Sally realised that taking sick and injured children out of Mostar in the middle of a war would be almost impossible. But she was determined to find a way. First of all, she had to find people who could help. One of those who did at the time, and who was by her side throughout the war, was her interpreter, Becker. 15 years later, and she needs an interpreter again, so they're meeting up for the first time since the 1990s.
Hello, man!
Still same old you.
Becker remembers the moment when Sally told him she wanted to rescue children from the hospital. To put it frankly, he thought she was a little crazy.
Everybody was shooting at each other, shelling each other, killing. That is the war, at the worst. Death at lose. Yeah. And I stared at the woman and said, "Come on, who are you?" With the idea to go over the line, and that's how it started. That was the first meeting.
The line Becker is talking about is the front line. It separated the two sides fighting each other and split the city in half. Snipers, mortar attacks and minefields made it the most dangerous place to be. If Sally was going to get the children out, she would have to risk her life and cross that front line. But Sally had contacts through her aid work and was able to get permission to cross it. She thought she was safe, but she was wrong. This is the road Sally had to drive down in her ambulance to cross the front line and get to the hospital. It's now a busy crossing point just outside Mostar, but during the war it was a desolate, bleak, dangerous place to be. And being here again brings back vivid memories.
I was driving across here, sailing along quite happily, when suddenly all hell broke loose because the snipers started shooting at me. And I was kind of, why are you shooting? I've come here to get the kids. And they were shooting from that direction, from that. I don't even know. I don't even know who was shooting, but it was absolutely terrifying. And I had to decide, do I turn back? Do I jump out? Do I go forward? And I just went forward. I put my foot down and this heavy old ambulance. I mean, it was a bloody nightmare, I have to say, because it didn't move very fast, and I just thought I was going to die.
And you were quite prepared to risk your life for what you were doing?
I had to, because there was no one else to do it, and so many children would have died.
Despite the sniper fire, Sally did cross the front line, and the ceasefire she managed to obtain largely held. And while it was dangerous to cross that front line, it would have been impossible without this man. Ivan Bagovic brokered the ceasefire that meant Sally could go in and save the children. Today they're walking along another part of the old front line right in the heart of the city, something they never could have done during the war.
This is quite strange to be walking with you. I mean, you gave me the permission to do this, and now we're walking together.
Yeah. We always were together.
We were, but we never walked across the front line together,
Yeah. Our job was how to help people, and I accept her like somebody who wants to do same job, and we were, thanks God, very successful.
And is it good to see her back in Mostar?
It's very good to see her again. Yeah, it's very important for us.
So far, Sally has met the people who made her work possible, but for her, this was always about the children. These are two brothers she tried to rescue, Elmir and Damir Grelio. Their baby sister Layla was in a bed nearby. This was the last time they were all together alive.
There'd been an explosion, and the two boys were very severely wounded. One was Damir, who was 5, and one was Elmir, who was 3. He had shrapnel in his eyes, and they were in the most dreadful state. They were carried into the hospital, and as soon as it was clear, I ran back into the hospital to ask if there was anything I could do. And the doctors said, we have to stabilise the children before they can be moved. Would you come back in a few days? So, of course, I said yes.
Sally did go back a few days later, but for one of the boys, it was too late.
Damir didn't survive, the 5-year-old boy. They couldn't save him. 5 hours after they brought him to the hospital, he died.
But Sally was able to take Elmir and his sister Layla to safety and get them medical help in Europe, and that's what she did. Today she is going to meet the family for the first time since then at their home just outside Mostar. The children don't remember much of the war, but Sally is nervous about reliving that traumatic time with their mother.
Layla. Hello. How are you? Okay? You look wonderful. Are you okay? Yeah? Yeah? You okay? You look fantastic. You do. You look beautiful.
With typical Bosnian hospitality, Sally is welcomed into their home, where the children's father, Layla, and her brother Elmir talk through our interpreter Vava about how pleased they are to see her.
I don't know exactly, I cannot express my feelings. I always felt that it will never happen. I couldn't believe that it would happen. I don't know, I'm very glad. I'm full of emotions. Emotions are working through me, so I don't know what to say.
Sally nam je tu pomogla.
Sally helped us a lot.
Kamo sreće da ima više takih ljudi.
If only there were more people like her in this world.
Takih dobročinitelja.
These people who do the good stuff.
Thank you.
Well, that was quite emotional at the beginning. How was that as an experience for you?
It was really hard for the first quarter of an hour when we were talking about the children and Damir, but after that was fantastic, brilliant. I feel really like I've come full circle. It was lovely seeing them so happy and relaxed and superb. I'm really glad I came.
And obviously very emotional for the parents as well today.
See, that was my worry. I knew that it would be them having to think back to that terrible time, that traumatic time. But actually, I hope maybe it's done them good as well, because it helps to talk, and maybe they've been keeping it in for years. I know it helped me.
A good day?
Brilliant day.
So far, Sally has coped well with the emotions being stirred up by her trip back to Mostar. But there is one last place for her to revisit, and although it all happened nearly 20 years ago, coming here makes it seem like yesterday. This is the building that housed the wartime hospital. It's where she first saw Layla, Elmir and dozens like them. East Mostar didn't have a proper hospital or medical equipment at the time. Doctors had to treat patients in a dark, dirty, overcrowded basement. Sally would travel from Sussex and arrive at this building to meet Hafid, one of the doctors who worked here. Today he's taking her back to that same basement, a place they both remember as a living hell.
This is the way I first came in. I remember this. I remember. And I remember coming down here by torchlight, because it was very dark. Because each time I came in here, it was worse, to be honest. How it could be worse, but it was. There wasn't anywhere to stand. It was littered with bodies, and they just didn't have enough stretchers or beds. So they'd have kids too on one bed. It was horrible.
We did almost no medicines. We had to spare our anesthetics only for those cases that had chances for surviving. Sometimes we have to argue among ourselves not to waste anesthetics for those who have no chances. Nobody would dare to come into that hell that they were in.
It was hell, wasn't it?
It was hell, of course.
And yet someone did come into that hell, Sally Becker. Altogether, Sally rescued around 170 children and their families from across Bosnia, an incredible achievement. But sat in this basement almost 2 decades later, and the memory of not being able to save just one more little girl is almost too much. This is Medina.
I remember she looked at me and she smiled. They told me she desperately needed antibiotics and that she needed to get out. And of course, what could I do? I couldn't carry her across the bridge with everybody firing. And I looked at her mother and I said, look, I'll come back. I'll come back. And as it happens, the UN eventually got the kids out, but Hafid wrote to me and he said, that little girl, Medina, she didn't make it. And, you know, had I picked her up and carried her out, she might have got killed on the way, but she might not have. And the fact is that I feel completely responsible. And I remember lots of kids, you know, and I know I helped a lot of kids. But I didn't help her, and she's the one I remember most.
As the Angel of Mostar, Sally Becker made a difference to this place and to the children who struggled to survive here. Returning to Mostar has been an emotional journey, but a journey worth taking. People here are grateful for what she did, and having returned to the city, Sally now feels it's time to renew her relationship with Mostar and its people.